Good day, everybody. It's Max, and welcome back to InfraSpace. That's right. And in this episode, we're actually going to be pushing on through the research tree to get into that and more research so we can start pushing up these level 6 housing. Now, we're also dealing with a small issue here, which is what the first part of the episode is going to be about, and that is we have traffic. We have a lot of traffic problems. So, I've had to spend a little time trying to solve the traffic problems because it's gotten to a point where it is pretty intense. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look to see how the traffic's doing, and hopefully we've got it calmed down just enough to push this to the end of 3,500 residents. Let's get to it. Okay, so we're going to have a look at a few of our issues. This is the first issue I'm running into. Some of my buildings continue to say that they're not connected to roads anymore, and I'm not quite sure why that is. I'm assuming that's some sort of bug that's going on. Now, we can solve that problem the same way we can manipulate road nodes, which of course I just did a tutorial on. Well, at the time of this video anyway. We can actually use the 4-arrow tool to actually grab the building, back it up, and then I can snap it back in. And it does seem to solve the problem. It's just, it's a bit annoying. And you'll know, and there's always this one building up here that does the same thing. This one building. I don't know why, but I have to keep pulling him out every once in a while when I start the game and get him to reconnect, and then he seems fine. He's fine after that. So I don't know what's going on there. Now, most of the city's been running really well, including my cool little my cool little three envelope rotaries. Now, I did this as another part of one of my tutorials, and it has actually been running really good. It actually runs very, very well, so I'm actually very happy about that. Hey, what's going on here? That was supposed. Why is that disconnected now? Oh, game. Like, again, I think there's still. I think the game still has some issues. Again, it is early access, and I mean it is pretty early. In terms of that, but yeah, for the most part this is running well. The one problem I was having was this bottom corner, and specifically I've traced it all back, and it took me a good hour last night to figure this out. I've traced it back to storage and what's going on with storage. So it appears I have some sort of issue with the storage, and a lot of stuff was going to storage, and specifically, the reason around that was because my production on certain items, such as iron ore and steel, was so high that anything extra being made was being pushed into my storage bins, which was clogging roads everywhere. So much iron ore and so much steel on the road heading towards storage was causing me a lot of problems. So, now you would think that, hey, look at this. We got a bunch of ore right here. We got a bunch of steel factories right here. If you just connect them right there, that should work, right? No, this was a total mess. So what I had to do was I literally had to disconnect. Literally had to disconnect these guys from this little short area, and of course now they tend to they take this drive down this way and around to come around to this steel, so as to avoid making lots of outbound traffic towards the storage facilities, if that's where they're headed to. But things have cleared up nicely. Now, you'll notice the same thing here, right? We used to have, we still do. We still have the 2 ore patches out here, and we had the 2 highways coming in. This highway would usually feed this steel on the right, and this highway would feed the steel on the left. But now you'll notice I've got both highways just coming in, and then they'll either dump off at this steel or they'll make their way over to this steel, which they usually don't bother now, so that's okay as well. Now, I've had to cut these guys back. Now, you'll notice some of these miners aren't mining anymore because I've got them cut back by, well, I've got them cut back over 50%, just so as they would stop clogging my road. And the problem was that once the roads were clogged, everything would fall apart, right? So I believe in one of the very first episodes I talked about was the domino effect. About, once your roads are clogged, you have very limited time to fix it. And that's because once your housing starts falling apart, everything falls apart really, really fast, and can get ugly really, really quick. So, I mean, that's okay. I've got it all fixed up. We're at 3364. Basically, I need 150 people. We need a couple hundred people to get to the 3,500 mark. And, of course, what is required to get level 6 citizens. You'll notice everybody is hanging out here at level 5 citizen tree, so we have not lost any downgrading of the house. That being said, it was a problem when all the traffic over here, because, of course, what happened was the ore couldn't get delivered to steel, so then they started to blink. And then the steel wasn't getting delivered to motors and to other things, so then they all started to blink. And then, of course, once they started to blink and they couldn't get resources, well, then the housing couldn't get resources, and they started to degrade. So it's, again, a snowball cascading effect that can happen very, very quickly if you have a lot of traffic problems. So, as early access goes, I think some of the things that would be nice, I do know that on their roadmap, they have traffic lights that are coming, which I think is going to be important. I think better rotary control. Yes, it's great that, we can make our own little rotaries, and I've done tutorials on making the rotaries, and that's fine. But I think the game needs proper rotary control, so as when you get into high traffic areas, and you want to sort that traffic out better, it shouldn't take as much work to maybe manipulate the traffic, or to manipulate the roads to get the traffic to work the way you need it to work. Now, in this case, though, things are still working really, really good. So what we want to do now is we're going to try to push just a little bit harder this housing to get it up to about, I'd like to have 3,700 myself, but I also don't want to really push anything else in terms of housing. We do have 400 jobs, so you know what? I don't think I'm actually going to expand housing anymore. I think I'm going to leave it as it is, and the reason is that when these upgrade, right, when we get VR in schools, we would actually start to get some return. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a quick look around here. One of the very first things we're going to have to do right after I bring you back is we're going to have to repair science. I had to tear science out. It was science is moving. I don't know where it's moving to. We're probably moving that out of the city somewhere, though, and we're going to make sure that it's off a major highway. Only because science, wow, the amount of course, for science, you need raw ore and carbon, and you also need, electronics and sulfur and blue science packs, and of course, then you need the neural processors and the motors. So we're going to actually kind of move science, I think, out of the city in this episode, so as we can get the science back on track, and we're actually going to give it its own little corporation out here in the middle of nowhere, right? I think what we'll do is we'll actually give it its own little setup and let it make science and not involve any of the traffic that's in here. So let me bring you back on that as to how we're going to design that out. Okay, we're back, and yep. The city is doing well, doing good. We've added a few extra little housing over here. Not too much, really. Just a little bit. And the meals are keeping up with what we had in the current stacks, so we're doing okay there. You will notice, though, in the bottom left-hand corner, it says that we have a population of 3684, but the amount of jobs are 4,745 and climbing. Yeah, I wish it really would. I wish it would really stop climbing like that. Yeah. Well, I mean, the city here doesn't look any different than before, right? I mean, you know, we got our steel, we got our stuff, right? Like everything looks pretty kosher out here, right? Everything looks good. There's our aluminum and that. Oh, wait a minute. What's this over here? That's right. This is a self-contained, unattached science division. Everything that's happening right here is self-contained into doing just science. It delivers nowheres else. So the iron, the copper, the sulfur is all being done here, and all of it is being used along with creating a lot of carbon, truckloads of carbon. We are making all the science here. Now, what are we making for science here? So we are doing this entire depot spread. What it is doing 12 blue science, 8 green science, and then 4 yellow science. Approximately every 60 seconds, right? Give or take a bit. All right. And that is what we have running up here in the corner. So right now we're researching superhighways. In fact, we've researched the uranium mining. We'll go to nuclear power next because I had to test it with to make sure it was going to work, and it's working with superhighways. So how is it we're maintaining almost 1,000 jobs over the limit, right? Well, that's because we've got a few things going on. First, we're not running that science at full capacity. We're only running it at about 50% capacity. And the yellow science, we're only running at about 18% capacity, but we could actually bump that up. I think we'd be all right. Chips are always running short, and I'm not quite sure why. I'm pretty sure I did the math right for the amount that I have for the amount of get up here. I thought I had the right amount of microchips factories for the neural processors on standby. You'll notice I do have the right amount of nanotubes for the processors, but somehow I've miscalculated that a little bit, and that's all right. I'll just shove a few more up there a little bit here. But just to kind of keep things humming along, right? Because that's what we're doing. We are literally humming along here. And because the city is separated from the science, okay, it is not trying to send any resources from here over to there, so it keeps using the resources to keep itself going. So, you know, the food is still the food, and is still keeping up with the food, right? We're not doing anything miraculous or magical there. You'll notice here that a lot of these are around the 90% mark, and that's because I think the game tries to decide, hey, you know what? If you're not gonna bleed jobs off of these, I'm gonna bleed jobs off of these, right? And that's fine, you know, when it's not hurting me too much. Concrete's only 9. It's only 18 people to work concrete, so dropping this to 0 doesn't help me at all. Sulfur, again, I just saved 2 people. You know, like, you're not getting big savings here. Here's where the big savings come in, right? Like when you start doing sand, right, which has like almost 400 people working it. But you got to be a little careful because that sand isn't accounting for this side, which of course is doing all its things, but it is also accounting for my science side, right? Because a lot of sand is used in a lot of this stuff, so we got to keep it going, right? Again, So yeah, that is running hot, but not hot enough, right? Now, I could try to cut copper back a little bit and see how that goes. Maybe we get a little lucky. Here, what do we got here? Industrial robots. Well, according to this, I mean, it's only using 9 people. It doesn't really matter too much. O2, of course, we don't want the city to starve, right? So we ain't cutting that off. I did cut food back because as long as they're getting good meals, they don't need regular meals. So we can cut these back, right? To a portion. And that allows everybody to kind of get a little bit more of a bump it up, right? So that is how we are literally maintaining 1,000 less workers than we need, because we are literally stretch coring this to the limit. Now, so let's go over here and have a look at science. So what do we need here to actually make this science work? Well, of course, blue's pretty easy. Blue science, of course, you need 2 iron and 1 carbon. Well, the carbon itself is all coming. I don't think I remembered to include carbon. That's why we're probably short a little bit of carbon here. Because they're probably getting that carbon. That's why you guys were short. You guys are taking carbon from these factories. Oh, that explains so much now. I was going to say, where are your carbon coming from? All right, in this case, 2 iron, 1 carbon, and as you can see, the iron and the carbon, it turns out from this steel section, is being used to feed the blue sections. So now let's take a look at green. Now, green science is basically 4 chips, 4 sulfur, and 3 blue science. Well, the blue science is self-explanatory. Right? All you need is 1 of these to feed 1 of these. So we've actually got 1 apiece. And then this one feeds right into this. That being said, these 9 factories here are feeding our factories down here. The ratio is very, very close. So you'll notice here it's 32. It's about 64 seconds for 4. And of course, these are 60 seconds for 4. So by having the extra factory, this 1 extra factory, so 8 green, and you'd have 8 green chips. By having the 9th factory, it makes up for the chips required to keep that fed. And of course, sulfur is sulfur. The sulfur is coming in from down here. Very simple. We only really needed about 2 machines to do that. It was pretty straightforward. Now, yellow science. Boom. Okay, so you need a green, right? So 1 green's going into the research lab, right, directly. But the 2nd green, of course, is feeding the actual yellow lab, right? Now, in this case, you need 10 motors per lab, so that's 40 motors, and you need 6 neural processors, or 32 of those. So here are, of course, the motors. Each of these are putting about X amount of motors, and of course, we're getting our 40 motors out of that. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't say they're doing 10. It's not doing 10. Like you're getting 2 every 24 seconds of 48. You get 2.5, right? So 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10. So each row is kind of doing 10 motors. And that is where our 40 is coming from there. And of course, to do those motors, you needed steel. And so obviously, if we're doing 40 motors, we need to have about 80 steel. In that particular case, as you can see here, this is giving us about that 80 steel coming through these 16 steel plants. And up here, of course, is the other part of the equation, and down here, of course. So the other part of the equation, of course, is the neural processors. Now, neural processors, of course, they require 4 nanotubes, 2 sand, and 2 microchips. Well, the sand is sand, whatever. Of course, we are shoveling in the nanotubes right behind it, and these nanotubes are getting all their carbon from these factories here. As for the microchips come from way up here, and to make all these microchips, you need all of these electronics factories, because you need electronic factories and more sand. It's just more sand. The thing about this entire setup, no exit point. It's all destination bound only, one-way roads. That's it. So there is no loop road, right? So when a truck leaves here from the iron mine, and let's just say it's taking its iron directly to this blue lab, okay? This is a one-way road. This is not a two-way road. This is just a one-way road. So that truck would drive down here and then turns down this way and comes into here, right? And then makes a turn here and then makes a turn into the lab, right? Well, okay. So he went into this lab. But the whole point is, this is all one-way road, all of it. There are a few little exceptions, of course. I needed copper and iron to swapple back and forth, so as these and these would get copper down here. This is the only multi-lane road in the system, right here. And that is just, again, so as the iron can get up here to microprocessors, and the copper can get down here to get into motors. And that's it. The rest of this is all destination only bound. Which is another great lesson that I have learned about doing this entire exercise, is that it's all about the destination. You're never going back, right? So unlike in Transport Fever, for example, in Transport Fever, once you drop this off, you would have to get back to pick up another load. But here you don't, right? Here it's more like City Skylines again, where the truck arrives, ta-da, that's it, right? And then let's say you're taking your ore and you're taking it up here to the factory, right? So you come up here and you're a good little doobie driver, right? And you drop your ore off. Great, right? So like here he comes, look, right? This guy's coming in, he's dropping off his ore, and see the little green truck that pulled out? Well, he is now taking his little green circuits to wherever he needs to take them. It wasn't the blue truck anymore. The blue truck was done. The blue truck, as soon as he entered the building, was poof, right? So one of the things about designing a city all with destination in mind, unlike a grid city where you're planning two-way roads and you've got traffic going back and forth. Now, yes, you would probably need two-way roads around your storage facilities and a few other things. But I'll bet you a lot of this could have been a lot easier to design, destination designed. Oxygen goes to this building. Done. Okay. And nothing else is needed, right? So the oxygen just came out of that building, right? Now, because of the way this city is laid out, of course, he is able to drive up here and go into this building. But, you could do the math and say, hey, you know what? This is going to pump out 1 O2 and 1 carbon every 16 seconds. Life is good, right? So let's pump that out. Let's get it out there and then just run destination lines, right? In fact, that's literally what I kind of did here with the food factory inadvertently, but I didn't really make it one-way roads. I just kind of made it one-way direction, right? So I made everything on the left come to the center. I made everything on the right come to the center, and then once it was in the center, I made it leave and go out into the big world, right? And then, of course, I ran short. I should have built this over a little further, so I had to put some extra meat plants over on this side. But really, it's to the left, to the right, to the center, and then out into the world. So I thought, wow, I could really take that design and just make that into science. And that is what we are doing now. So, in this case, and again, I am always seem to be running short on a few microchips. But you know what? I am not going to worry about that. I am literally running 1,000 jobs short. So there isn't really a lot I can do about that. Now, yes, when the city upgrades, right? That's what we're going to do next episode, right? We're going to push all this research, right? I'm going to push all this research, and then I'm going to shut down research, right? So we're going to push all this research, like nuclear power, the superhighways. Whether I use superhighways or not, I just want to get the research trees done. Then, we're going to push schools, holo displays, high-tech workshops, and recycling. And then, of course, you know what we're building. Yeah, next episode, we're going to build us some VR entertainment and schools, right? And then, boom, then we're going to see what really happens. I think it's going to... Because then these buildings are going to be able to hold probably, I would say these will go to 4 more, which is 20. And you put 4 more people in all of these buildings. No, that isn't going to give us 1,000 jobs, but I don't need 1,000 jobs. Because sooner or later, all of this research will be done. And when it is, and I shut down all of this stuff over here, these jobs aren't going to matter, right? These jobs are just kind of jobs hanging out. In fact, once the research is all done, I can take all of this and hook it into the city. Boom, and then explosion time, right? So don't know what we're going to need for VR entertainment or for schools. I would hope that it wouldn't be too crazy, but we're going to find out soon enough. I'm probably going to have to do a small food expansion just to play safe, so I would think I'm going to have to do a food expansion down here. And again, I'm not even going to try anything until I get the research done, because I can just see it now when I go to flip the switch on putting in a little extra food production or a little extra anything at the moment. It is going to literally lose its mind on this production grid. Right now it's a little short for carbon and a little short for these processors. Whoop-de-ding-do. When you start running short of meat, yeah, someone's going to complain about that, right? So that's what we're going to try and tackle on the next episode, as we now have the parting shot of the new Science Center. Oh yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff, isn't it? The Science Center of Things. Yes, this was a crazy build. And it's pretty cool. I must admit, it is pretty cool just to have science on its own, like self-contained, not having any hassles, destination driven only. It's perfect. It's really cool. I'm Max. This has been InfraSpace, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.